Hey guys, here I am again. Happy New Year. This time I'm actually going to be discussing the impact of the pandemic with our mental health. It's been a crazy year last year. It's a new year and we're still trying to adjust with everything. And at the moment, when I'm starting to record this, we just got the news that we are going to be moved on back over to the orange phase. So even with the vaccine out, it's still iffy on what's going on, how are we approaching this whole pandemic thing. And it's very, very stressful. Being able to discuss this topic is really relevant, and it's also nice because I get to voice out my concerns, how I feel about it and everything. And, yeah. So we're gonna be dealing with a couple of questions that were presented to us, and as I go along, I'll explain every aspect and my opinions on that, and the research that I did as well regarding mental health, especially during this pandemic. Okay, so for the first question that was presented to us, it's so, how should I say it? It's so humongous, and what this pandemic has done for everybody, right? When we were asked to find something positive about it, it was really hard because most of the time, especially being able to live in the now for what's going on, all you can really, how should I get it? The only thing that you can actually get from the general public is just more of a negative aspect on this whole thing. But I did a little bit of digging, trying to understand what's important and what could be possible outcomes out of this whole virus that we're dealing with, right? So especially for mental health, one positive thing that I've seen about this is that since everybody was placed on lockdown, it kind of put everybody's jobs at home, you know what I mean? Now we're actually getting to spend more time at home, spending more time with the family, and actually just enjoying your own personal time, as compared to before. We had to balance it out, go to work, getting the kids, getting everything ready. But now, since the world is kind of shut down, we're starting to appreciate the little things. We're starting to appreciate conversations. We're starting to acknowledge what's important to us. You know what I mean? For example, my sister, she really never got laid off, but more of they were now work at home. And I think from what happened there since early on in March until now, they're still working at home. And I think from what I've heard, they're going to be transitioning to that kind of work style for their office. So, well, that's a good thing, right? At least now she has time to balance things out with her kids, with herself, and just being safe in general, right? But I don't know. Hopefully, with the vaccine and everything, things will start to slowly get back to normal, and maybe we'll try to find out a proper way on how to deal when it comes to work and enjoying that personal time. You know what I mean? Because it's really good with this kind of pandemic. You need as much time to take care of yourself, of your mental health and everything. One negative thing I feel that is, or the most prominent negative aspect of this whole pandemic, is that it's about the fear and the anxiety about the virus. Even now, with the vaccine, everything's still up in the air, right? There's so many clauses about the vaccine. Everybody wants to get the vaccine. Everybody wants to be safe. But now there's new strains coming out. There's just that whole stigma that we are going to get better, but when are we going to get better? What's going on? Am I scared to go out now? There's that I don't know, there's that unknown. You know what I mean? and that kind of stress builds up. Because what happened to us was everything was just cut off, right? Everything was like, we had to lock down, we had to shut down, and everything was that was just sudden. There was no like slow transitioning. It's like, oh, let's not do this. Everything was just bam, and then here we are. This is not post-apocalyptic, but this is about close to it, right? Like we're dealing with a pandemic, and we're still learning to live with it. And yeah, it's difficult, but we're surviving. Okay, so for the second question that was presented to us, how has it affected me personally? Now, I work as a healthcare provider for a long-term care facility. So during the whole time when the whole world shut down, I wasn't shutting down. I was still going on with my job. And one good thing about that is that it made me feel important. Because let's be honest, like when the world stopped and this whole pandemic came to be, the world started to see what's really important. Like who are the real stars in the society, right? So it's the healthcare providers, it's the service workers working in your groceries, the people doing the garbage, that kind of thing, right? It changed the whole world's perspective on what jobs are important and what really should be paid more when it comes to a compensation, but that's a whole different case. Being able, or like as a healthcare provider, being able to care for those that are susceptible, those who are elderly, kind of pushed me into being okay with, not being okay with the virus, but being more responsible. And like I said, I felt like a hero in this, because we were there, or I was there for those who can't take care of themselves. I know family members wanted to like pitch in and do everything that they could, but again, as a professional, it's like it made me feel that my job was important, and that made me feel important, and that kind of like I would consider it as like a positive thing that helped me keep on going during this whole pandemic. But with that, of course, comes that stress, and that's my negative part about this, is that the stress of being in the front lines. Like we were the ones that are susceptible. In case anything happens, we will be there by hook or by crook. It's part of the job. We have to be there to take care of these folks, right? So having that kind of stress and having to worry about my family, like my child and my father-in-law, who's very susceptible as well to the virus, kind of just threw us off. Because like if you, in case you guys don't know, like our whole family are actually like healthcare providers. So my wife, myself, my mother-in-law who lives with us, so my sister-in-law, we're all there. So regardless of how we see it, we're there. We're more exposed, right? So again, there's the nice aspect of being able to provide care to help out, but then there's the stress of like, oh wait, we're susceptible to like not just like COVID, for other diseases too, right? Like the flu, for example, or anything. But that's the job, right? You gotta bear down and just be responsible for what you're doing. Alright, so for the third question, how am I coping, or how have I dealt with this whole stress because of COVID-19? It's great that at work we've got a really good COVID protocol. As a matter of fact, they've got like teams and stuff available there for the healthcare workers just to deal with this kind of stress. And that's the first thing. There's like every time we're at work, we're always being updated. with the status on this, and this is good because it's like streamlined information. It's like what's new, what's going on in the office, what's going on in the province, what's going on with the protocols with us regarding visitors, ourselves, that kind of thing. And being that kind of situation that you know that you're working and you're exposed, and you got your fellow co-workers are also in the same boat, you get to discuss things every day, like how was your day, what's going on, what are you doing, what tips, because really at the end of the day, like, we're social beings, right? We need to have that form of communication. And with this whole pandemic just shutting everything down, like I said, it limited us on what we can do. So being able to vent out, being able to discuss things with somebody with the same situation that you're in really did help out cope with like the stress and everything. But sometimes there are some people at work that are also very, that add up to the stress. If you don't know how to like cope with that, they'll be the ones that actually scare you sometimes. But with this kind of situation, with the pandemic that we're on, you have to keep a level-headed mind, because the residents, the patients, the clients can sense that in you, and you don't want them to be stressed. Because I mean, again, what's the point? You're just adding fuel to the fire, right? So that was one of the things that I did just to cope up with the stress. And the second one, I was basically focused on hobbies. You try to focus on hobbies or interests that you want to do. Like, for example, for me, it's pretty obvious I like my action figures and stuff. So during the pandemic, like as the days go on, as it got busy, it's a great thing that I got these things around me to take me on to like a different world, just to refresh myself. I call this like my vault. I call this my little go-to place, and it really does help out a lot. There's also the point of me like also going to school, so balancing that school life and that work life and everything. It's nice being able to talk to like fellow students, try to figure things out, and still, again, this just helps me calm me down, basically. So I'd say that's one of the things. You gotta find something that makes you happy, that gets you out of the zone, so that you can just like reset. Okay, so what other things can I suggest to others to deal with and cope up with this whole pandemic, right? For their mental health. There's a lot of like websites available. The CDC, WHO, and they give out some really good like examples on how to deal with it. Like the first thing maybe that I would probably suggest for everybody, since everybody's just at home, everybody's getting information, I would say that at this point where technology is like super advanced, I would say you have to learn to streamline your mode of information just to filter out which ones are relevant to you and which ones are good for you. Like for example, if like you're watching the news, right? Like, so you're getting information about the news and everything, but then you go over to social media and something else pops up. You check over the internet, and then you get lots of like other information about the pandemic, and it just like snowballs. Now you're getting too much information, and that's going to create too much stress for you. A certain limitation of like what you can do, both online or through media, is important. If you try to like, if you're trying to get for the news, I would say just like focus on, like, if you're worried about the pandemic and everything, just focus locally. Like, what's the situation of the province? What's the situation in my city? There's no need for you to be stressed out. It's like, okay, what about this and that? And if you're worried about your family members, contact them, right? Try to figure out how are they doing, but really focus more on what information you should be getting for yourself. Don't overload yourself with information. And my second advice that I can give to everybody, and this is true, is to get help when you need it. There's a lot of helplines, there's a lot of online resources, like I mentioned earlier, the CDC, WHO, your local ones. You can just give them a call and just reach out. Like, it's a difficult world that we're living in, and there's so many people, and there's so many people within that are actually just like you. They're in the same boat. So all you need to do is just like reach out and try to contact these people, try to like figure something out. Because again, we are social beings by nature. We cannot not be alone. We need to at least vent out and talk and converse, you know what I mean? Okay, so finally, last question over here is, how do you think this pandemic or this COVID virus will impact our existing mental health crisis? Now, this whole pandemic really put a lot of stress for everybody. Like I said earlier, it's hard to find like the positive in this, because like most of it really is a negative thing. And I mean, I'm just calling a spade, you know what I mean? It really is up to us to find that light of hope, you know what I mean? Like that like nice positive thing. Because if you allow yourself to be defeated by just the notion of the virus itself, you've already lost. But one positive thing I can think about this, especially for this whole mental crisis thing, is that it gave everybody the idea that we are not as alone as we think we are. Because of the advancements of technology and everything, we're all actually pretty much connected easily. Like the technological advancements, for example, like I mentioned earlier, there are helplines or stuff like that. But now people can do like video calls, Zoom calls, you know what I mean? Where everything is just basically face to face. You don't have to personally interact. I mean, again, as human beings, we like touch and everything. And that's hard, but at least through this, we can actually get connected and just socialize, you know what I mean? I know people miss like drinking out in like a pub or going out to a bar, but you can be smart about things. You can actually just have like, I don't know, a Zoom meeting or something and just have a glass of wine or beer, having a conversation, watching the game with a friend, you know, like using video games or something, just to interact and connect. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that technology, if we use technology properly, it will help us deal with this whole social issue and this lack of connection thing that we're having, right? And again, it's a good stress reliever, and we need to keep our stress levels down even when the world's like this, right? Now, one negative thing that I can think about this that will add to that whole mental health crisis that we have right now is I think there's going to be this new stigma about the whole physical interaction thing. Like, because of the whole social distancing part, at some point, people are getting nastier. If, like, for example, you forgot to like wear your mask, they're like scared of you because of that fear of the virus, that anxiety, and fear of the unknown. People are just like, even like the idea of shaking hands might be, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, like, shaking hands is important. Like, you can get a feel of that person. You can understand more of the person just from a handshake. But now people are going to be too scared. Once everything starts to get back to normal, simple touch, you know what I mean? That handshake, that distancing thing, it's just gonna be different. That's what I'm gonna say. And in terms of the mental health crisis, like this whole negativity and everything, I think it's also going to lead out to more dependence on alcohol and substances just to help cope up with the stress. And that's why I'm opting to like use technology so that you can actually just, instead of you going through that route just to deal with that kind of stress, talk it out, have a nice conversation again. And we're all just connecting online. It's different, but it's better than nothing. You know what I mean? Okay, and there you have it. I hope you liked or listened, hopefully, to my little speech about mental health, and especially during this pandemic. Again, it's very disheartening that we're going back to the orange phase, but we're safe. And so far, we've survived, and we are going to survive, and we're going to get better at this. The vaccines are rolling out, and there's a lot of things to be hopeful for. Right? At some point, when we look back at this, when the virus, when this whole virus is gone, it's going to change from a pandemic to an endemic. It's going to be just kind of like the flu shot that we'll get every year. So, I mean, we're fine, right? So, as I always say to everybody, please be kind and be safe. And this is Deneb, signing out.